There is a phantom authority ruling over your life. It is a set of expectations you never agreed to, written in a language you don't speak, yet you spend every waking hour trying to obey its commands. This is the invisible script. Look at the way you measure your days. You are haunted by a digital timeline that tells you exactly where you should be. By 22, you should have the degree. By 25, the career. By 30, the house, the partner, the settled soul. You look at your screen and see 1,000 versions of success that feel like personal indictments of your own life. Every time you see a peer ascending, you feel a quiet, cold weight in your chest. The realization that you are falling behind in a race you didn't even know you were running. You are a generation quietly drowning in milestone anxiety. You have been trained to view your life as a series of levels in a game, but the game is rigged. The goalposts move every time you get close, and the prize is always just one more achievement away. Alan Watts looked at this frantic, linear desperation and saw the greatest tragedy of the modern age. He understood that you are living in a state of perpetual preparation. You aren't actually living your life. You are waiting for your life to begin once you've cleared enough obstacles. You are treating the present as a mere stepping stone to a better future, effectively making yourself a ghost in your own existence. The journey versus the song. Alan Watts was a master of exposing the linear trap. He observed that Western society treats life as if it were a journey, a pilgrimage with a destination at the end. You are conditioned to believe that you are going somewhere. You start in kindergarten, move to primary school, then high school, then university, then the real world. At every step, the system whispers, "Wait until you get there, then it will be real. Then you will be happy." But Watts pointed out the fundamental flaw in this logic using the analogy of music. If you go to a concert to hear a symphony, do you sit there waiting for the final note? Is the point of the symphony to reach the end of the music? If that were true, the fastest conductors would be the best. If life were a journey with a destination, then the goal of life would be to get to the end as quickly as possible, which, as Watts noted with a dark chuckle, is the cemetery. One, you have been taught to treat your life like a business trip, where the point is to arrive. But life is actually a dance. When you dance, you aren't trying to reach a specific spot on the floor. The point of the dance is the dancing itself while the music is playing. By focusing on the milestones, you have stopped listening to the music. You are so obsessed with the destination that you have forgotten that the journey is the only reality you will ever have. The architecture of comparison. The invisible script thrives on the architecture of comparison. In the digital era of 2026, this has been weaponized into a high-precision psychological trap. In ancient times, you only compared yourself to the 10 people in your village. Today, you compare your behind-the-scenes footage with the highlight reels of 8 billion people. You are comparing your internal mess to their external masks. The invisible script tells you that everyone else has found the secret, that they have reached the destination, and that you are the only one still wandering in the woods. Watts understood that this comparison is a form of self-torture. He realized that the destination everyone is chasing is a social hallucination. There is no there. There is only here. By chasing the milestones of the invisible script, you have given away your power. True, you have allowed a collective of strangers to define your value. You have become a servant to a timeline that was designed to keep you productive, not to keep you fulfilled. You are a king who has abandoned his kingdom because a peasant told him there was a better one over the next hill. The architect knows better. The architect knows that the hill is an illusion, and the kingdom has been under your feet the entire time. Eating the menu. The invisible script has been supercharged by the digital architecture of our time. You are living in a global feedback loop where value is measured in metrics that do not exist in the physical world. For Gen Z and millennials, this has created a state of digital dissociation. You spend your days looking at a screen, watching a simulated reality of success that is perfectly curated, filtered, and edited. Alan Watts had a profound way of describing this specific modern madness. He called it mistaking the menu for the meal. Imagine you go to a high-end restaurant. You are starving. The waiter brings you a beautifully printed menu with descriptions of exquisite dishes. Instead of ordering the food, you begin to eat the paper. You chew on the ink. You swallow the cardboard. This is exactly what you are doing when you obsess over your milestones. The career title, the follower count, the aesthetic home, the digital badges of honor. These are the menu. They are symbols of reality, but they are not reality itself. Watts understood that symbols are useful for navigation, but they are useless for nourishment. You are starving spiritually because you have become a master of the symbols while ignoring the actual experience of being alive. The invisible script tells you that the symbol of success is the goal. But the architect knows that a man who has the symbol without the substance is merely a well-dressed ghost. The paradox of the chase. Why does it feel like the harder you work to catch up, the further behind you feel? Why does the achievement of a milestone, the promotion, the purchase, the graduation, only provide a few hours of relief before the anxiety returns? Watts explained this through the law of reversed effort. He observed that the human mind is like a magnifying glass. If you want to see an object clearly, you must hold the glass at the right distance. If you press the glass against the object in a frantic attempt to see it better, everything becomes a blur. By obsessing over your milestones, you are pressing the magnifying glass against the fabric of your life. You are trying too hard to arrive. This frantic effort creates a psychological frequency of poverty. When you say, "I must reach this milestone to be successful," you are literally telling your subconscious, "I am currently a failure." Watts pointed out that you cannot achieve a state of being that you already are. If you are a musician, you don't achieve the song at the end of the performance. You are the music while it is playing. But the invisible script has convinced you that you are a non-being until you hit the next mark. This creates a permanent state of lack. You are running toward a bucket of water to quench your thirst, not realizing that you are currently standing in a river. The architect doesn't chase milestones. The architect realizes that the milestones are just markers on a map that he is already drawing. The conflict of nature. Watts often divided people into two categories: the prickly and the gooey. The prickly people are those who love logic, labels, lines, and, most importantly, scripts. They want life to be a series of neat boxes to be checked. They believe in the invisible script because it gives them a sense of control over the chaos of existence. They are the architects of the linear journey. The gooey people are the ones who recognize that life is fluid, messy, and interconnected. They understand that you cannot draw a straight line through a cloud or a forest. The tragedy of your generation is that you are gooey beings trying to live in a prickly system. Your nature is to flow, to change, and to explore. But the invisible script demands that you be a rigid, predictable unit of production. You feel lost because you are trying to fit your infinite liquid soul into a square, digital box. Watts understood that the prickly world is a game we play, but we must never forget that it is a game. When you take the game seriously, you suffer. When you realize that the milestones are just arbitrary rules created by people who were just as lost as you are, the script loses its power over you. You stop being a chess piece on someone else's board and start realizing that you are the board itself. The space in which the game happens is far more powerful than the pieces moving within it. Breaking the linear chain. We have identified the script. We have analyzed the digital hallucination. Now, we enter the realm of the architect's final act. The invisible script relies entirely on your belief in horizontal time. Horizontal time is the conviction that life is a line stretching from a deficient past toward a sufficient future. In this model, you are always a traveler, always tired, and always almost there. You are a prisoner of the next. But Alan Watts introduced a concept that shatters the very foundation of this struggle. The vertical moment. Watts observed that the past is nothing but a memory trace in the present, and the future is nothing but a projection in the present. There is no such thing as tomorrow. There has never been a yesterday. There is only a continuous, shifting, eternal now. When you adopt the ghost protocol of time, you vanish from the linear timeline. You stop asking, "Where is this going?" and start asking, "What is this?" To the people around you, the ones still frantically checking their milestones, you will look like you've stopped moving. They will think you are behind. They will call you unambitious. But in reality, you have simply stepped off the treadmill while they are still running toward a painted wall. You have moved from the horizontal struggle of becoming to the vertical authority of being. Mushotoku. The most terrifying word to the modern, chi-optimized mind is aimless. You have been raised in a cult of purpose. You are told that every action must have a goal, every hobby must be a side hustle, and every minute must be productive. If you aren't gaining, you are losing. Alan Watts countered this with the Zen concept of Mushotoku, the state of no gain or aimlessness. He pointed out that the most beautiful things in the universe are fundamentally aimless. Look at the clouds. What is their purpose? What is their milestone? Look at the way a cat moves, or the way the wind blows through the trees. They aren't going anywhere. They aren't trying to be better clouds or more productive wind. They are simply expressing their nature. Watts argued that a human being is at their most powerful when they are aimless. When you do something for the sake of the doing itself, not because it leads to a promotion, a paycheck, or a social media post, you are tapped into the primordial energy of the universe. Treat in the invisible script, this is a revolutionary act. When you stop requiring a result to feel valuable, the script loses its leverage over you. You cannot be blackmailed with the fear of failure if you have already decided that the dance is the prize. The architect doesn't work to achieve a goal. The architect works because the work is a manifestation of his power in the present moment. He is not a slave to the gold at the end of the rainbow. He is the one who enjoys the colors of the rainbow itself. Burning the script. There comes a moment in the life of every outlier when they realize that the authority they've been obeying is just a group of confused children in adult suits. The invisible script was not written by a divine hand. It was written by a frightened society that needed you to be predictable so it could feel safe. Watts understood that the ultimate act of maturity is the death of the master. You must burn the script. You must realize that you are the author of the very rules that are crushing you. If you feel behind in life, it is only because you have accepted a definition of front and back that someone else invented. When you burn the script, the milestone anxiety vanishes. You realize that you cannot be late to your own life. You cannot be behind in a universe that is a circle. Imagine you are at a grand party. The sheep are all standing in a line at the buffet, waiting for their turn to eat, checking their watches, and complaining about the wait. The architect realizes that the music is already playing. He doesn't wait for the food to start enjoying the party. He dances, he wanders, he explores the gardens, he talks to the shadows. He realizes that the party isn't the meal. The party is the entire experience of being in the house. A final command. As we reach the end of this excavation, you must remember the lesson of the sky. The invisible script is a series of loud, chaotic noises. It is the screaming of the marketplace, the buzzing of the digital notifications, and the frantic heartbeat of a generation that has forgotten how to breathe. You are the sky. The noises pass through you. The milestones are just birds flying across your obsidian vastness. They do not define the sky. They do not limit the sky. When the world tells you that you are failing, you look at that thought with a mild, detached curiosity. Oh, look, a cloud of social judgment. Fascinating. And then you return to your focus. You return to the music. The war with the timeline is over. You have won. Not by reaching the finish line, but by realizing that there is no line. There is only the rhythm. There is only the breath. There is only the profound, dark authority of a soul that has finally decided to stop preparing and start being. The air is thin here. The sheep cannot survive at this altitude. They need the comfort of the script. They need the safety of the line. But you were built for the vacuum. Comment below to seal the transition. I have burned the script. I am the music. The dance continues. The architect remains silent. Subscribe to stay centered in the void.